Hello everyone and welcome to Capitol Watch for Friday, May 8th, our weekly look at the Missouri General Assembly. And joining us from our governmental relations offices in Jefferson City is our Associate Executive Director for Advocacy and our Chief Lobbyist, Mike Reed. And Mike, the major development this past week was the passage of the so-called student transfer law. Tell us about that.
Yes, the General Assembly passed the House Bill 42, which is being called the Student Transfer Bill, but I don't think it is a transfer bill. It doesn't address the transfer problem. It doesn't speak to what happens with the kids from Normandy and Riverview Gardens. It doesn't put a cap on the amount of tuition that can be had, that can be charged. It is an expansion of charter schools, and it's an expansion of virtual schools. Charter schools will be able to be expanded into Jackson County, except for the Center School District, and in St. Louis County. It's also an expansion of virtual schools. The bill contains a different way to look at school buildings and how they are accredited. And in urban districts, Kansas City, Independence, Columbia, Springfield, St. Joseph, those buildings are accredited by building at the building level. So if in fact a building is unaccredited in Springfield and there are not enough rooms, not enough seats in the rest of the Springfield district for all those students who wish to leave that school, they can transfer out of the district. That's something that has not happened to those districts before, and it's something those districts have to look at and to think about. It's an interesting piece of legislation, but it's not a transfer bill. It's an expansion of charters.
So, Mike, as you were mentioning, school districts outside the major metropolitan areas, many districts should be concerned about this bill.
Well, districts, and they know it, and they should keep reading that, because yes, they should be very concerned about this bill because it affects them.
Mm-hmm. And our position now, Mike, it goes to the governor, and we are urging the governor to veto this bill, aren't we?
We will certainly be writing the governor to say that he needs to read this bill very carefully and look at it very closely and see what happens. But we would encourage the governor to consider vetoing this piece of legislation.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike, another bill that appears to be moving now. We tend to see these sorts of bills toward the end of a legislative session, an omnibus education bill where other previously considered bills are added on to a bill. Tell us about that one.
Yes, Senate Bill 172 is moving it. Was a very innocuous little bill in the Senate that came out and got all kinds of things put on it in the House of Representatives, including the student testing for citizenship, the numerous other pieces of legislation, and it's kind of the omnibus education bill for the year. It appears to be moving. It has a conference committee report out, and it probably will be passed. There isn't anything in the bill that really is very harmful to public schools, but it is something we need to look at because we'll have to write some new policies. There's question on making sure that students are tested for autism, making sure that students are ready for college, and new policies that have to be ready for, that students have to be ready for college or career ready. So it's a large piece of legislation. I think it started out with 2 pages and now is about 87 pages.
Another bill we've been watching, Mike, has to do with changing procedures and policies regarding special education. Where does that bill stand now?
That bill cleared the House committee yesterday. It still has to go in front of the House Select Committee on Education, which will not meet until the end of next week. That bill probably does not have any, is probably not going to pass. However, nothing is over until the 6 o'clock on Friday. We have talked to the sponsor to see if we can work on this bill over the interim to make sure that it gets right and done the way that it should be and the language that is acceptable to everyone. I'm not anticipating this bill passes, but everything could change in a minute.
And of course, Mike, we do have 1 week left in this current legislative session, the regular session. So what can we expect in the coming week?
Yes, the session ends at 6 o'clock on Friday, next Friday. We can expect an awful lot of fireworks between now and then. Many pieces of legislation will be pushed and legislation put on top of other legislation and dropped. What our members will see will be a lot of email blasts from us saying, please contact your representative or senator concerning XYZ piece of legislation. It comes fast and furious this time of year because this is the way the pace is. So please watch your emails and please contact your representatives and senators. I will tell you that I heard a lot of reps say they received much notification on House Bill 42, and I appreciate that. We came within a couple of votes of killing that piece of legislation. So it's very, very important that you contact your elected officials and tell them how their actions in Jefferson City affect you.
All right, Mike Reed, thanks a lot for joining us. And as Mike mentioned, the legislative session ends coming up in about a week. And following the end of the session, we'll be providing you with a summary of what passed and what didn't through a special edition of Legislative Voice and also a special edition of this program as well. So be sure to watch that. And of course, as Mike mentioned, be sure to watch for any critical issue alerts we might issue during the final week of the session. Thanks a lot for joining us on this edition of MSBA's Capitol Watch.